Hello.
Hello there. How are you?
Hello. Hello.
I'm so good to see you.
I know, I'm excited to be here.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us today.
Absolutely.
So where do you live at?
New York.
New York. Okay.
Yeah.
All
How
right.
about
All
you?
right. We're pretty much all based out of Chicago. Some live in suburbs, but our general place is Chicago.
Chicago.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah,
Yeah,
we're
so thank you
about
again
to
for
go into our
joining us.
cold soon.
I know. We've had some good weather though, honestly. It's been like in the 60s lately, so that's really good for October.
Really good.
Because baby, it can get cold in Chicago. So we enjoy this little time, this little weather we got. We are enjoying it. Yes, we are.
I love it.
All right. So we can go ahead and just start discussing your book. Shallow Waters is the name of your book. Um, I just wanted to start with first of all, let me give people a little introduction about me that I've gotten from Google. Okay, so we have Anita Kopacz with us today. And she's actually, of course, an author of this wonderful book that we're reading today called Shallow Waters. She's a writer, she's a spiritual advisor, and a spiritual psychologist. And she was also a former editor in chief of Heart and Soul magazine. So we're discussing the book today, Shallow Waters. My first question for you is what inspired you to write this book, Shallow Waters?
So what inspired me was I think I was probably around 19 when I first learned about Yemeya. And I had never heard of her. And I went to UC Berkeley for college for my undergrad, and people began to tell me about her, that there was essentially a goddess, a black mermaid that looked over our ancestors as they came over the Middle Passage, and she took care mostly of the souls of the people who didn't make it over, who either chose to jump in or were thrown in, the millions of souls. And I could not believe that I didn't know about her. I was like, how did I not know this? And as I explored it more, I realized that it was really on purpose for us to not know about her, that if we learned about her, it would be demonized. People would say that it was, against our religion, and there were just so many things that were keeping me away from the knowledge. And so eventually this story just kept coming up, but I was doing other things, like I was doing my master's, I was working at Heart and Soul, I was having kids, right? Like I was doing all of these things. But this story, I would say, was like harassing me, right? Those things when things begin to harass you, right? And so I was like, okay, I really need to do this. And I feel like there's so many of us, which I actually didn't know that my background was with the Yoruba people in Nigeria. I was while I was doing the book tour, African Ancestry reached out, and they're like, can we see, where your people are from? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. And then I was laughing because they're like, there's a small chance that it might not be black. I was like, oh, don't tell me if it's not black. It's like, oh no. They're like, we just have to tell you that so you know. And I was like, okay. So when they revealed it to me that I was Yoruba, and I was like, oh, it all made sense to me, that I felt so connected. And there are so many Yoruba descendants here. And so to me, it just felt like this journey was to help me remember who I am, and for anyone else who wanted to remember who they are. Yeah.
Wow, perfect, perfect, perfect.
Inspiration.
Yeah, that was great. I also had my next question was, can you explain to people the term Yoruba and well, you kind of already explained Yemiya a little bit. So just, I guess, explain the term
Yeah,
Yoruba
no,
because
I'll
everybody's
explain.
not
Yeah.
familiar.
So there are many different peoples in Nigeria. There Igbo, Yoruba, Hausa. There's many more, but those are like, I think, the biggest ones. And so when when the slave trade did happen, there were quite a few Nigerians that ended up coming here and throughout the diaspora. So the Yoruba are a people, and their religion is called Ifa. And within the Ifa tradition, they have, a lot of people will say that it's a pantheon of gods and goddesses, but they wouldn't say that. It's one god, who is Oludumare, who is just the god in the way, almost in the same way like the Christians have one god. And then each, like, I don't know how many Orisha there are. I could probably Google it and figure it out. There's quite a few, but they all represent elements. So Yemeya is the ocean. And, we know, well, you might not, but a lot of people know Oshun because Beyonce, that's her goddess. And so Oshun wears yellow. She's all about honey and the bee, and all of the sweet things in life. So Oshun is Yemeya's daughter. And so Yemeya is the ocean. She's said to be the mother of us all, the mother of all fishes, they say. And she, like I said, she first was in the river, and then when they began to steal her people away from the continent, that's when she decided to go into the ocean and take care of the souls that didn't make it. And so there's deep, deep stories that have been passed down for millennia, I want to say, because the first written accounts of Yemeya were like in the 1400s, 1500s, when the slave trades began. But before that, it was passed down orally. And so nobody knows how old these stories really are, because they remember their history through song, through call and response, and passed down orally, all of these stories.
Well, it's so funny that you mentioned that when you kind of went into Yemaya transforming to human. That was going to be my next question. Why did Yemaya mother drill her into the process of becoming human? Now, you stated because she didn't want to be alone, and a lot of and living in the oceans, they were all dying. But I was just wondering, like, even if I just felt like maybe she could have stayed in the ocean, since that was her birthplace. And it's like there's other fishes in the sea as well, So
There's
it's
other fish
like
in the
I
sea.
don't think she would have been alone, And
Yeah.
it's just like I just want to know what was why did her mother drill her saying you should become human, you know?
She
But
wasn't saying you should become human. It was in an emergency situation if she had to. That's why she was drilling it into her, so she knew
okay,
how to
okay,
do it in case she had to.
okay.
And this, of course, is a teenager falling in love and is like, I'm following him wherever he goes, right? Like,
Yes, yes.
that was her emergency, right?
think that's a non-age emergency because most people, the heart wants what the heart wants, regardless.
Exactly.
And that's what I got from that. Even though it was like, I don't care, the heart wants what the heart wants. So even
Yes,
though she was happy in the ocean, the heart wants what the heart wants.
exactly. Exactly. That gave me chills. It's so true. It's so true.
Yes. Yes. Okay. Anybody else have any questions? Just go ahead and jump right in.
Hi, I have a question. I enjoyed your book and thank you. And ironically, I was in DC and my husband and I were on vacation with the sole purpose of going to the African American Museum. So your book was like very timely as we were going through the museum and yeah, just having your book in the back of my mind as we were going through the especially the Middle Passage and slavery. It was interesting. Uh, did you know at the time that they were not, well, so the ending. So the ending, I wasn't sure if the ending was that maybe how do you say his name?
Obatala. Obatala.
Obatala. Had he succumbed to his injuries, or was it like did you leave the reader it's up to the reader to decide was he alive or not. You know what I mean? Because I read it, I was like, maybe he still is alive. Like we don't know, but you don't we don't hear you don't hear about him after that. And then I was like, I hope he's still like I feel like she went through so much to be with him that I guess the hopeless romantic in me is like, I hope he's still alive and that they were together. So
Yeah.
that was my question. Yeah.
So the funny thing about this ending, I've had, I can't even tell you how many endings. I've gone through so many different endings for the book,
Hmm.
and nothing, like when I tell you that I was writing this book with, like, I felt like Yemeya was with me and
Wow.
she would tell me if I got something right, right? Like I'll
Mm-hmm.
write it, she'd be like, nah, like, no, that's not it, right? And so I like, rewrite it, and I was rewriting, and I did not get this ending until basically 1 week before I got my book deal. And I think I was laying down and all of a sudden it just whoom, like came through, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is the end. And I'm crying as I'm writing it. So yes, he does die, but
Okay.
Obatala is an Orisha, which means he is a
Oh.
god, right? Like, so you'll
Mm.
see, I'm writing my second one right now. So you'll see
Okay.
how it
Okay.
continues, right? Like, but that form, he basically um did the ultimate sacrifice to save
Mm.
his love.
Yeah.
And Obatala, as an Orisha, he is pretty much the energy of community, of leadership,
Mhm.
of taking care of others. And so that's why he didn't have necessarily the same type of powers that Yemeya had. Those were his powers in leadership, right? Where she was like, let's break out of the train and leave. And he's like,
Right.
no, we can't
Gotcha.
leave them down there without us, right? Like he was very much there for the people.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. And that, because I was also wondering as you said that, like, how he got involved on the Underground Railroad, and I just assumed that she was going to find him in Canada. Like that, that's where I thought the book was leading. So when she found him, I'm like, what? Like what? Like how did he get there? So that
Yeah,
makes sense.
he got
Yes,
caught because he was helping.
helping to go back and forth.
So he got caught in that, um, unfortunately, of course. And you know what's very interesting about um sorry. It's very interesting about the Middle Passage, and even having stories and movies about this time has never been my favorite. when I would watch them, I would come out like straight up militant, hating, like I'd be like, what is this? How did we survive this, and why? And just so many questions. And so when I started writing and I finally allowed myself to really dive into what my ancestors felt while they were coming over on the Middle Passage, I was a mess. I mean, I was bawling, and my kids would come in and be like, "Are you okay, Mom?" I'm like, "Oh no, our ancestor," right? Like, oh, it's not
Right.
okay.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And so what I've said a lot about this book is that to me, it was my healing of this time for me. Because one thing that came up, which was very interesting, was the concept of work. And I just know that anytime I would say I have work to do, or there's work, there's a part of me that wanted to run away from that. But then when I would do the work, it feels so good. And I'm like, well, why do I hate the word work? Like, why do I hate it? Because when I do it, I'm enjoying it. And like, what is this? And I realized that it was ancestral, and that we built this shit for free. Like, we did all of this work for free. And so there were a lot of concepts and things in my mind that can seem far-fetched, but I was healing it all when I was writing this book. Yeah.
I have
Wow.
one more question.
My kid, so the book is in a curriculum for AP African American Studies. And so a lot of the things they're learning about, they're going to go to or some people are going to go to the African American Museum in DC. So that's and some
cool.
classes are actually the smaller classes. I think there are 300 schools that have it right now, because it's a pilot program. And some of the schools with smaller classes are actually going to go to Africa, different parts in Africa for their trip.
Wow.
I know. I was like, oh,
That's
I didn't
amazing.
have anything like that in high school.
I know, right?
Yeah,
Times have definitely changed.
you really have.
Anybody else have any questions? Anybody?
I have one more
Go ahead.
question. So when I was
Okay.
reading it, is it thought that maybe Harriet Tubman, like as you were explaining the Orisha and the powers that Yamea had,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I almost wondered, did Harriet Tubman, like, could she have been the, I guess, descendant of someone who had those powers as well, given her ability to, it said, like, she was beaten, so that her blacking out was that, or narcolepsy, like, it was stopped, but
And that's where the visions came. Yeah.
yeah, is that where the visions, like the vision, maybe she was a descendant of a Orisha.
That would be an amazing story to write. That would be an amazing story. In this book, she is she's alongside Yemaya, but like the visions that came to her were so accurate that she never lost one passenger, right? Like in these perilous times, and she was able to keep everyone safe who traveled with her. So to me, she definitely was out of this world. Like, there was something. I also had this moment when I was writing the book where I was writing about Harriet Tubman, And in it, there's, you probably remember, there's a part where she gives a 2-year-old a tincture to fall asleep while they go on the Underground Railroad. And as I was writing it, I was like, oh, I don't know if Harriet Tubman was an herbalist. So I think I'm going to take that part out of the book, because it's a historical fiction. The part that's historical, I tried to keep very true to, right? And so I was like, I think I'm going to take that out of the book. And I went to sleep. The next day I had a sales meeting for Heart and Soul in the city. So it was at a restaurant. We did the sales meeting, but in the restaurant, the restaurant was open to other people as well. And this woman came up to me after I did the sales meeting, and she said to me, "Did you know that Harriet Tubman was an herbalist?" Didn't even say hello. Didn't even and I was just like, why would you say that to me? And she's like, I don't know, because it's Black History Month, and you look like you were someone who would want to know that. And she was Black. It wasn't like she was a white woman saying it to me, like, oh, it's Black History Month. She was Black. And I was just like, you have no idea. You have no idea what, and that's where I was just like, they're sending messages to us, right? Like, it's not just us. Like, when we have a calling to write a book or do a project or write, a movie, I swear we connect to the people or the characters. And this was her coming through saying, don't take that out of the book.
Period.
Period. Exactly. You sound like my daughter. Period. Exactly.
Yeah. Anybody else want to go? Have a question? Anybody? I had another question. I wanted you to explain the significance of water in the book, and also how it also relates to water in reality.
Yes. So as you, I'm sure, could tell, one of my main themes was water. And I think for me, living by the Atlantic Ocean, and all of the lives that were lost in that particular ocean, I feel like there is so much power within that water. And so I wanted to play with that energy and see how could water give Yemeya her powers. She's obviously a mermaid, so she's from the water, but how could it play a part? And that's where I got the idea that that's where the strength comes from. When she's able to be around water, that's where her strength comes. And for me, just the idea of water to me is, emotions, our intuition, our all of these things that we give back to the earth in order for the earth to be alive, right? Like, water is so important. And so that's basically how I brought it in for Yemeya, to show that it gives her strength. And that what I really love about her journey, so because it is a coming of age, it's like you get to see her discover that, right? Like, she doesn't just know it, she has to discover it. Yeah.
I thought that, just to continue the water theme, I thought it was interesting because as I read about the importance of water, I couldn't help but also think about there's also a fear of the water, right? Because like a lot of Blacks, like, we don't know how to swim or stay away from the water. So like, it was just like that juxtaposition of like the importance of water and what it's become in the, like, more, I guess, not modern day, like current day, but like what it's become in Black culture of a fear and staying away from water, which is sad if you think about the importance of it and what it's become. Probably because of the distancing from the history, right?
It's definitely from the history. Yeah. Because if you think of, I mean, we know all the coasts of Africa, they're all fishermen, they're all, like they were not scared of
Exactly.
the water,
Right.
right?
No.
And there is, I mean, not only from all of the people that we lost in the waters, but if you think about how traumatizing it would be for, kids in the 50s, 40s, 50s who may have jumped into a public pool, and then they drain, black kids jumping into a public white pool, and then they literally drain the pool in front of you. There's a lot of trauma with
Hmm.
that. And but no, you're right, it is true, so much fear of water. But I believe all of that fear is because there's so much power in it, and there's been so many ways in which we've been kept away from our power.
Yeah.
And that's what I was thinking too. Even with the storyline, like how she got her power and they saw, I mean, it could have been others, and they saw how the water was so powerful for them. And it was like, I'm not going to give them water to, get that power and that strength, So then on top of that, so it was like probably embedded. No, you don't need that water. You don't need this because you're not going to be strong enough to do whatever you need to do to get away.
Yep.
That's interesting. That's true.
Yep. I know, that's actually one of my favorite parts in the book, is when Yemayaz is like scared to be murdered, and then she realized he's trying to do it with water. She's like,
Right. Yeah. Well, some of it.
exactly.
And she's throwing the air bubbles to pretend she's dead. Kind of like rolling her
Yes.
eyes. Yeah, that was funny.
The
Yeah.
Duncan,
It was a
the
light
Duncan
moment.
chair.
The
Right.
Duncan
The
Yeah,
chair.
Duncan
it
chair.
is.
Yeah.
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 that
Yeah.
that also, well, the water too, but also how she learned that, because before she was just speaking up, but she also learned how to, I don't need to, tell everybody I have these powers. I can keep it secret. So that's what I really appreciated about that too at that moment, even though she was scared, but she also learned that I don't have to project this out, because sometimes people boast their power, but she also learned in that, to me, in that moment, that I know how to keep my power so people won't try to abuse it and take it away from me.
Exactly.
Mm.
And I mean, this is just a little thing, but she did not tell any white people about who she was. Tilly knew she had powers, but she never told Tilly who she was.
Right.
And it's like, because you just can't trust him. But that's not like, I won't.
So it's funny that you said that, because I'm thinking like, dang, she waiting on him leave because she's going to tell on him. The auntie's going to tell, and it was
Right?
like, I don't know why she stayed and waited for her, but
Yeah.
that was my feeling.
Yeah, no, it's true. And so she was just in that place of, I guess just protecting herself intuitively, and also she's not just even intuitively, just because she's seen the horrors.
Right.
And I think what is very interesting is that so many of the atrocities and how violent the history of white people are, it's like it's very violent. And I think it's really interesting how scripts have been flipped in so many ways, where we're made to think that we're the violent ones, when Africans are not all, I won't do blanket statements, but we're a lot of the spiritual practices and communities are based in love and are a gentle people. And that was another thing with the indigenous people as well, is that, you know, when Columbus came, one of the notes he had within his journal was like, these are the most kind people that I've ever met. They're going to be so easy to colonize. That's what he wrote. And so it's really, really interesting how scripts are flipped. And yeah, so there are little things within the book where I put, there's this one part where just like little micro aggressions, right? Like where Moses had told Tilly that please call her Moses, like don't call me Minty anymore, and she still calls her Minty after it. Little things like that, where even when my editors were going over it, they would be like, oh no, you have to change that to Moses. So I was like, no, that's on purpose. That's on purpose, just to show, even when there's so much love, there's some not always complete understanding, and you know, like it's there's little things in there like that. I'm not completely militant. But yeah.
I wanted to talk about Yemaya, you know, when she was younger and in the beginning where she her father didn't come back, and that made her mom go look for her father, and then her mother had gotten captured or lost, and it's like now she's a young girl raising herself, you know, throughout this whole entire book. You know, that speaks volume, you know.
Yeah.
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 And she had a long journey.
She had a long journey, and that was, I think, Cora speaks to that, where she said, didn't you have your own rite of passage when you were younger, where you realized that you can take care of yourself? And she was like, yeah, but it wasn't my choice. And that was really her rite of passage, going through that, losing her parents, being able to rely upon the other sea animals to protect her and be with her. And to me, you know, when she meets or sees Obatala for the first time, or the second time, but the first time as an adult, like that feeling of, oh, I belong with him, that's where I belong. And her following it.
Yeah.
Heart.
And when she
What
went,
was it that you said, Yolanda? The heart
wants what it wants.
the heart
Nothing you
wants
can
what
do.
it wants.
You know, your mind is saying, no, he's human. I'm this. I'm a mermaid. I'm this. Your heart wants what it wants. You know, and everybody try to get in the way or try to stop you, but the heart wants what it wants.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what I felt, even when she saw him, or even when he rescued her and she saw him and he cut her, he was like, you don't belong here. And it was like, he set her free. It was like, I don't know how many times, to me, that was another message. You know, like how many times he tried to set her free, you know, even when she came back and Moses told her it doesn't end well, you know, she still followed, my heart wants what I want. You know, I'm going to go there regardless of what you say. It's going to end how I want. My heart is telling me this is my man. This is who I'm destined to be with.
Yes.
She still did when she told her, don't go there. So I'm pretty sure, well, I'm assuming that Moses told him, yeah, you will see her again, but it's not going to end well for you.
Yes.
You know, that would probably be the last time you see her. And he
Yeah.
knew it, but he didn't tell her that. It was like, Moses told me I would see you, and here it is. And he was like, she was like, those 3 scars. It was something about that 3, you know. And
Yes.
that's another thing. We always be like, it happens in 3s. It happens in 3s. So 3 scars.
Yes.
So it's like, it was a lot of messages for me in
Yeah.
that book.
Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's so interesting. You said it comes in 3s. It's the same thing that my family has always said, right?
Always.
Yep.
It comes in 3s. That cycle of 3.
Yeah. And that was
So in
actually
that book,
one of
the three marks. She sees them 3 times. I mean, it comes in threes. I don't know if you intended that, but it comes in threes.
I didn't think about that. No, I wasn't. I didn't even think about that, but completely. I when I was on the book tour for the book, I remember talking a lot about just how, to me, my experience of Black people is that we're very magical. And I'm like, I think even in the families that want to deny it, there's always that aunt that had that dream, that knew something was going to happen before it happened. And I'm like I have it. I know. I was visiting some of my family. I have some family in England, and my cousin was like passing out drinks to everyone, and she passed over me. I was like, hey, can I have something? She's like, no, I had a dream, you're pregnant. I was like, what? And she's like, no, you can't have any, you're pregnant. I was like, no, don't say that. And I was too scared. I hadn't missed a period or anything yet. And then, when I went home, I was like, oh, and I took the test and I was pregnant.
Oh,
So
wow.
it's like, I feel like we all have at least one of them in our family.
We have multiple, but we don't listen, or we try to put them off. Oh, they're crazy. Because my mother used to always say, oh, I dreamed about fish, but I was mean to her. I'd be like, where the fish did? And she'd be like, then it wasn't me. But but sure enough, somebody was pregnant.
Somebody was pregnant, right?
Somebody was pregnant. My niece was like, I dreamed about all these fish. And both of her sons are now having babies at the same time. She was like, it was just fish everywhere. Well, that was your fish dream.
That was your fish dream. It is, like, as long as we're open to it. And it is. I could go on for hours about magic.
All right. Another thing we do, I don't know, but magically they dream and they play it in the lottery like it's a number. They have a number book and it's called a dream book. And they write the numbers to the dreams in the book. And people play in the lottery.
Oh. Like, maybe I should do that.
So they have all kind of dream books, but the numbers in the book is like whatever you dream, they have numbers related to the dream. And people playing the lottery, and people be like, I won big. I dreamed about this. I dreamed about money. I dreamed about death. I dreamed about talking to the kid. So it's like, okay.
I love it. I love it.
So, and then also, I went to Haiti, depending on whatever, here, because we have this Christian value, whatever, anything that's related to magic, we say, oh, it's witchcraft. But when you go to Haiti, they was like, it's not witchcraft. This is the religion we practice. And I don't know, you guys have been taught, in America that is bad or whatever. He was like, it's our religion. We're not trying to hurt anyone, but this is what we truly believe in. And that's what we practice.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, like what I was saying before is that, everything is demonized. Anything that has to do with our culture from where, where we came from, it's demonized. And I think I remember when I was younger, when someone was, I think they were talking about like ancestors and demonizing ancestors and talking to our ancestors. And I was like, oh, you're saying I can't talk to my grandma? Like, no.
My niece says the craziest things. She always says, my ancestors told me to do this. I'd be like, if you don't stop that. She says, the ancestors came and told me. And I'd be like,
wait, how old is she?
Oh, she's the same age as me. She'll be 50. My mother.
And she says it. I love it.
She says it.
I love it.
But I call her my sister niece because we're close in age. But she always says that, oh, the ancestors told me. And I asked the ancestors when I couldn't, when she's cooking, she'd be like, I asked the ancestors, what do I put in it? I said, stop it, stop.
I've done that
all the time.
I've done that. I've done that when I'm cooking. I asked my grandma. I'm
Uh-huh.
like, well, what goes in this? How do I do this? Yeah, they're there. They're
They're there.
there.
Like my mother, she's passed away, but I still hear her voice like whenever, because I like to garden. But I still hear her voice when she tells me, "This is what you need to do. Just lay it like this." It's like I can just hear it in my head talking to me when I'm going through and doing the instructions or doing whatever. And people like, "You
Yeah.
have a green thumb." Well, my mama talks to me. I just hear her voice telling
Yeah.
me how to do the stuff. It's just crazy to me, but that's
Yeah.
me.
It's not crazy. They're our ancestors.
Mhm.
Energy
Yeah, I think
cannot
we're the
die.
only I think we're the only culture that do not embrace our ancestors. You
Yeah.
know, we don't embrace them. We think
What do you
like,
mean by
oh
that?
no, um, because when we speak about our ancestors, we don't. A lot of people don't even bring them up. You know, and if you are around an organization that do bring them up, sometimes people are looking at you weird, like, "What's she talking about? What is it?" You know, it's like a weird type of atmosphere all of a sudden. You know, when you do bring up the word ancestors, or like you said, your mother, you know, they'll say stuff like my mother, but they don't just say the word ancestors. You know, we as a Black culture don't talk about them a lot. You know,
I-
we don't embrace it. We don't bring them up. We don't talk about them. You know, it's like they're dead, they're buried. Let them stay where they are. You know, we don't think about their
yeah.
spirits and things like that. Is what I'm saying. We
Mhm.
don't embrace that, and their
Particularly,
spirits are still alive as well.
yeah,
You know.
exactly. And that's definitely like we were saying before, it's like the making sure that we're scared of our powers because or of our power because they definitely do in most parts of Africa, right? And so it's mostly just us in North America probably because even like Brazil and in the Caribbean islands. No, there's definitely been a lot of demonizing because my mom is from St. Kitts, in the
I
Caribbean,
was
and
that same kiss for my birthday.
are you serious?
Yes, for my 50th this year.
Oh, yay! Yes, it's a small, tiny island.
It is.
A small, tiny island, and no, you're right. There is that um, the fear. I mean, it's embedded. It's embedded, and hopefully, I feel like there are a lot of people waking up to it. Um, but it's definitely embedded.
And when I
And
went to St. Kitts, this is what all the people said. Welcome home. I'm like, welcome home. I'm not from St. Kitts. I was like, no, welcome home. You're from here.
yeah,
Okay.
oh, I love it. Oh, oh, yeah.
I, I just what I had a question when we were going back to what Tanisha was talking about how she lost her father and then she lost her mother, and she was alone, and it kind of just was almost like a uh, I forget what the literary term is, like, you know, it's like a projection to her life, right? So because she traveled alone too through the Middle Passage on the boats, and despite being in the water, she almost lost her life, you know, during that passage. And was that symbolism to show the parallelism of the people on the boat and then her being alone in the water? You shaking
Yeah.
your head, yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Mm.
And even throughout the book, even if she was with people, she was alone in her
Right.
journey
Right.
of
Mhm.
Mhm.
being, being this creature, right? Like
Mhm.
she's
Mhm.
different.
Right.
And um
And
one
not
one
understanding
thing
her powers, right? She was still being alone and not knowing who you really were because you had no one to talk about, like, this
exactly.
being that who had you had become, or no one you could trust besides the man she fell in love with.
Yeah. Yep.
I think she trusts the other people that she first met, but I don't think she was willing to. It's not so much that she, to me, that she was willing, because they was like, it was like they found everything when they saw her, and she was just like, all these people was trying to help her. She just couldn't understand why these people was trying to help her, because she just felt, no, I want to get to my heart. I don't know why y'all trying to help me. Y'all just need to help me do this one thing. But they
Yeah.
was like, no,
Yeah.
it
Just
was
help me
like,
find him.
she didn't know. She was like, I can't help y'all. I don't know what y'all talking about,
Mhm.
But everybody knew she was great. And that's, to me, that's also a magic in itself. Because sometimes, even with, I would say, Black people in the whole, even when we go and people, you're on the job or whatever, everybody knows you're great. They're coming telling you how great you are, and you're like, I'm not that great. I'm just doing me. You know what I'm saying? I'm doing me. I'm not trying to be a superstar. I'm not trying to overshadow you. I can help you. I can do whatever, but I'm just trying to be me. But to me, for me, that just exemplifies, when I walk, I just walk to help. That's my power, I believe, is to help. I don't know what it is. People will say, oh no, I'm not helping them, but it's like, I just go out my way. I'm going to help this person
Yeah.
because something tells me to help this person. It's just that I just truly believe I'm here to help people,
Yeah.
regardless of whatever it is. I just feel that way.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree.
And also, when y'all was going into different tribes, she would always consider them as family if they were good to her, So
Mhm,
she was picking up family throughout her journey, with
mhm,
Cora
Mm,
and
mhm,
Amatola,
yeah.
all these different people.
Zata,
She was like,
yeah.
oh, that's my family, So then
Yeah.
sometimes she'll go back to them and meet them somewhere else and be like, oh, that's my family, So I thought that was really cool,
mhm,
to adapt people and have a bond with them throughout your journey and consider them as family. And sometimes they would treat her as family as well. A lot of times they'll just embrace her and just be like, just happy to know that they already know she's coming before she even gets there, so they're expecting her, so it's
Yeah.
all planned in the universe, it's all
Yeah.
timing. So yeah.
And it was hard for
So that
her
way
to,
Mhm.
oh, I was saying it's hard for her to accept that, right? That
mhm,
people know who she is, because she was like,
mhm.
I'm not, well, I'm
Right.
not the Yemaya you think I am, right? Like,
yeah.
and most of the people, have you ever heard of that name? No. Like, and
Mhm,
so I think it to me, it was a lot about what Yolanda was saying, how a lot of times we don't see our powers,
mhm,
other people see them.
mhm.
Yeah.
Clear about it, and they see
Right.
it, and we don't see it. So that was a one of the reasons why I had it that way, that other people could see it,
Mhm.
couldn't.
But also in the book, because we do that as a whole, like, to me, as a people, we do help each other out or whatever. Like, even when I don't live in the Chicago area anymore, but when I lived there, I lived in Palatine. But ironically, every Black person I seen, we automatically spoke to each other. It was like, I don't know what it was, but we spoke, like we automatically had a connection. And then one time I was in a store, it was an older lady and she had a white husband. It was like she literally had a full conversation with me. Her husband's like, come on, what you talking to this woman for? But it was like she had to talk to me because it was like, no, this is my people. I got to talk to them. I'm like,
This is my
okay.
people. Exactly.
So with that, her adopting family, to me, we take on our family and we hold on. For me, in my case, I hold on. And Tanisha, I love my ancestors. I'm on it. Scared of that fear of the system. It's not too many Black people on those different sites where they give their DNA to try to find a family, because there's like, I don't want to go to jail. My people go to jail. If you did something wrong, you go to jail regardless. But a lot of us, well, for me, I just want to know who my relatives are. I only know so many generations, but I would like to
Yeah.
know all my generations of how whatever. And it's still amazing to me that Alex Haley was able to go all the way back to Africa. I don't know how he did that, but I would like to do that, go back and find my roots.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. The
Yes.
African ancestry, I mean, I guess we never really know what happens to our DNA, but they're
Right.
one of the first
Mm-hmm.
ones who created this system. And
Mm-hmm.
what they do is, once they find the results for you, they get rid of your DNA, so that
Mm-hmm.
it's not used, it's not sold to the government. They don't
Right.
keep the information there. So it would, as far as what they say, it's not used for what people are scared of.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I guess we never really know. I didn't
They
see
use our
it the
DNA
way.
regardless. If you go to the hospital, you've been in the emergency room, they don't use your DNA. They illegally used our DNA. The Gila, what's her name? Henrietta Lacks. They
Yeah.
illegally used her DNA for cancer development, for
Cures. Yeah.
cells and theories. So we don't know. People are like, oh, they do what they want to do, regardless of what people are like.
Exactly.
I'm not doing it. They do what they want to do, and sometimes they get away with it, and sometimes they don't.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I
True.
have
I
a quick
wanted to bring
question.
up one part. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
Go
Go
ahead,
ahead,
Lisa.
Tanisha.
I
The
just wanted
part
to
in
bring
the
up
book,
one quick.
the part in the book where she heals the white abolitionist who, like, can you talk about that? That her, because I think they were the only whites to see her powers. Yes, in the book, like
No, they
no.
saw her power. Tilly saw her powers.
Oh yeah,
They
Tilly's her part.
saw
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
powers, but she never told them who she was.
Gotcha.
Mhm.
She didn't say who she was. And
Mhm.
so Waldo, right? You're talking about
Yes,
Waldo.
Waldo. Yeah, yeah, yes, yes.
Yes, Ralph Waldo Emerson. So,
Okay, okay, okay. Never mind. Now I
yep,
got it.
yep.
I was
And
like,
it's
okay.
interesting the
Yeah,
way
that's
certain
cool.
historical figures came into the stories. It was like, when I was writing the book with the Ralph Waldo Emerson, one of my friends like sent me a Ralph Waldo Emerson quote. And then I was talking to someone else and they talked about one of his books. And then something came up on my feed, right? And so I was like, okay, Ralph Waldo, let me see how old you were during this time, right? And so I looked him up and it was perfect. He fit right into the time. He also had a very interesting story. He had an illness that he would every winter at first he would go down to Florida and he could not stand the way Black people were treated in Florida. So he stopped going to Florida. And so he had this whole story behind it. And so I was just like, okay, I'm bringing it in. So this was, my version of him curing that illness.
Interesting. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So his illness wasn't mental.
No, it was an actual, I don't remember exactly I don't know if they ever found exactly what it was, but he found that when he would be in warmer weather, it was better. So that's why he would go down when it was cold. And
Mhm.
yeah. So no, it wasn't mental.
Because he was like, I never seen anything clear, whatever it was. It was like his mind wasn't clear. Well, that's why I said it was mental, because his mind wasn't clear, his vision was clear. Nothing was clear for him, and everybody just thought he was a raving lunatic. And I just thought that was an example of her powers, not just I can heal more than just the physical, I can heal the mental. In my version.
Mm. I love that. Possible. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. That part was I really liked that part because a lot of Ralph Waldo Emerson's like his paper, The Oversoul, that I do quote in the book, where he talks about, we are all one, is just it was so powerful to read it and to see how he broke it down, how everything has the same soul, even though it's broken up. And we see it as separate things. When it comes down to it, it's all one soul. And so I wanted to bring that in, but then he was also in his sickness. So that was the thing, was that Yameya was like, how can you have such a mental grasp of what's going on and be so disconnected physically? And hers was almost the opposite. She was so connected physically, and this was the first time she's heard it in words. Yeah.
I wanted to bring up how one part of the book that made me so mad was when Sarah, she snitched on Yemaya. I was like, oh, no, she didn't. No,
Same,
she
same.
didn't.
I was so sad. I was like, what? Yeah.
Oh,
Same.
I know.
That hurted my heart. It
It
hurted me
did.
so
Same.
bad.
Same. I was
It
like,
Ooh.
did. Mine too.
oh, yeah,
Oh,
that was hard.
it
Uh,
did.
Then she went back to the house, and first thing she told him is Sarah here? He said, no, she's gone. I'm like, thank God.
Oh,
yeah,
Don't
I
go
that was
back
know.
there
same.
with her.
I know.
It's like one of your own people, like, oh my
The
God, no.
betrayal, the betrayal.
Right,
Real.
yes.
That was
It's
hard.
so true.
Mm,
I
mm,
know.
mm.
Well,
I have about 10 minutes left. That was my alarm going off, just so you know.
okay. I just have one more
All
thing.
right.
Like, but speaking of which, to me, because I always think we're smarter, not being racist or anything, but when she came and she was able to adapt and learn to read, it was like she picked it up and was able to comprehend. It was like, oh, you know how to read. And to me, it's like whatever we're given as a people as a whole, we adapt and we just can take it and just take it to another level. That's all I have on that.
Yeah.
I appreciated
Yeah,
that.
it is true. There's
Mhm.
a Beyonce song where they say that where she says we make love a different way. We talk a different way. I just love that part because there is definitely I was talking to one of my friends about how a lot of marginalized people have had experiences of being erased from history,
Mhm.
and I was like, not Black people. I'm like,
Mhm.
we make sure that we are not erased from everything that has happened to us. It seems like at least the ones who went through the diaspora should have been erased,
Mhm.
Yeah.
but that's not what happened. And I think, us sharing our stories and sharing stories about our ancestors, and I think that's all a big part in us claiming our presence here. Yeah.
I was
Yes.
going to make one comment since you're in New York. I don't know if you've been to DC, but you should try to get there. There's a exhibit at the African Art Museum that reminded me a lot about your book, and the artist it is the souls of the pregnant women of the babies who died on the Middle Passage in the water, and how
Oh, wow.
this I'm not explaining it right, but I'll put it in the chat. But how she looks over them. So it was
Yeah.
like your book was a very interesting timing for me to be in DC and experiencing all these Black experiences. And that particular, when I walked through the exhibit, it very much reminded me of your book. So
Oh,
I'll put it in the chat.
okay. Yeah, I definitely want to go. I mean, I've been to DC, but I never have been to the museum. So I definitely want to go. Heart and Soul was based out of DC, the magazine. So I had
Mm.
gone there a lot. I mean, even though most of the work was um what is it when you do it online and not in person? Most of it was virtual.
Virtual.
Yeah, most of it was virtual, but sometimes I did have to go. Yeah.
I just want to say I thank God for the Quakers. I mean,
Mhm.
without them, I don't know if we would have made it through, because we had to go to
I know.
people's houses and they had these safe houses, lots of them. And they were hidden, they were in the basement, like you say, sometimes hidden behind the wall. They were safe havens. So
They were safe havens,
they, yeah,
absolutely.
yeah. So they,
And
they, they played a big
one
role.
really interesting thing that I learned about the Quakers, um, as I was, doing my research, is that they don't necessarily believe that there is an intermediary between you and the divine. So when they go to their church, there's not necessarily a preacher
mhm.
who is the intermediary, right? Like the intermediary, like the one who would maybe get your messages from God, or send your messages to God, however, however people want to look at it. But anyone, if you have a message while you're in mass, you can, or whatever they call it, you can stand up and say the message.
Oh.
So anybody can stand up, anybody can be the preacher for that day. It's so, I'd never heard of that. It's like, oh, they believe every living being has the right to be free, which was why they were so such a big help during this time. But that intermediary thing was really blew my mind, because I can't tell you how many times growing up in church where I wanted, like, I was like, wait, I want to say something, right? Wasn't always the best things. I just, my poor mom. That's all I gotta say. I'm like, so wait, because I'm learning, how what it takes to make a baby, and I'm like, so then if God and Mary had a baby, yeah,
Speaking
I
of
don't
which,
know.
I don't know how I came across this. I live in, oh, that's what it was. Like, I live in Ohio, and they have like Amish town, Amish country, whatever.
Yes,
But I
yep.
was looking up Quakers, whatever. But it was saying that they were persecuting the Quakers because they didn't believe in whatever they did. I was like, oh wow, this place is really crazy. So you think they just persecute, oh, somebody that's different. They're persecuted if you don't believe. Even today in society, they still persecute you if you don't believe what they believe.
What they believe. So it was the Amish that persecuted the
I don't know who
no.
persecuted the Quakers, but they had,
Oh,
it was like
just people.
something
Okay, I see what you
in
mean.
Pennsylvania where they banned them. It was like, you can't practice this religion here because of whatever, and they banned them. It might have been the Amish, but I'm not sure who banned them. It was like,
Yeah,
okay, because I was just like, why is this coming up on my news feed? Because I was searching like,
that's
what are these things?
interesting.
But it came up, and I was like, wow. I was like, it's like, I don't know. It just came up like, no, this country been doing stuff wrong to people all ever since
Oh,
the birth,
yeah.
the inception of when they had a joke, which is so funny. I was on a cruise ship, and it was a native, and he had a band that he was selling. So majority of the people on there were Caucasian, but they didn't buy the band. And his band said "Fighting Terrorists since 1496," and they were, I bought it because I'm like, he right, but they were like upset because they don't believe they're terrorists. Like how you said, they flipped the story. You guys are terrorists. Every land that you came to or go to, you invade and you become
Yeah.
terrorists. And it's like, we're
Rape,
not terrorists. We're
pillage.
trying to do what's right.
Yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. It is. You're preaching to the choir.
Okay. I was just like, okay.
Oh gosh.
But I
Well,
did enjoy the book.
well, I know that you have to go, Anita, and I just want to say thank you. Thank you so much
Absolutely.
for
Thank you
coming and
so
joining us today and sharing your time with us.
much.
We enjoyed your book, and
That
we
was her
can't
book.
wait until you release the second book so we can know what happened to Oba Taylor. How you say his name again?
Obatala.
Oh,
Oh,
Can
Bottom.
I
Obatala.
take
Obatala.
a picture of us?
Yeah,
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
you
Ready?
can have her book in the book thingy. I think I have her book.
Oh,
Where is it?
Yes.
there.
Let me know when you're ready.
I think someone's getting their book. Okay. Ready? 1, 2. Got it.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank
Obatala.
you.
Yes. So when you have your next book, make sure you let us know, or I'll be looking for it. I'll be on the search for it, and then we can
Okay.
bring you back on and discuss that one as well. Okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It would be my honor. I thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
for
you.
reading and learning about Yemaya, um, and continuing to just love on our history.
Mhm.
Yes.
So
Yes.
important for
Yes.
us.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yes.
Definitely.
All
All
right.
right. Well, you have a great,
amazing
wonderful
Sunday.
weekend.
Thanks, Anisha, for getting this
Have a
together.
good one.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Um, okay, so we're gonna just go ahead and pick the book for next month. And I was put it in the chat, and you all text me and let me know what book y'all want to read for November. And thank you all for joining us on today,
So
ladies.
the list is in the group chat, the group me chat,
I'm
the current
sorry,
book
what'd you say?
list. The current book list.
Oh, I can send it to you. I'll
All
send
right.
it to you to your phone. Yeah,
All
because in
right.
case you
Great.
all don't have it, I'll send it to you. All right, thank you all. See you all next month.
All right. See ya.
All
Bye-bye.
right, bye-bye.